Well, there's my point. Right there, Mark. There's my points. That's been my point all along. So obvious. Imbeciles. All right, folks, welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. Oh, the video's not up yet. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Not playing that yet. All right, look, there we go. I'm gonna address this little thing. It's not that little. It's actually pretty indicative of what's been going on in the Republican Party. I don't think because of the person involved. I actually think there's something a lot bigger going on that is leading to these problems that they're having. All right. But first and foremost, I will save that until roughly the end of the show. Because I want to discuss the numbers first. And then it's going to be an uncomfortable conversation. I'm just letting you guys know, especially if you're on the right. Some of you are not going to like this, but you know what? It's not, I don't even know how I got to be where I'm at I'm the only person on the internet who tells people what I think they need to hear instead of what I think they want to hear. No matter how many times you'll hear somebody like a podcaster or like whatever say, oh, I shoot it straight. They're full of shit and they want to shoot it the way that gets them clicks. And that's it. Or gets them like somebody to give them money and a donor and whatnot. And I think that this show really is unique in that I make a living separate from this world. So I don't really need to play the game that so many of these other people play. And believe me, when I tell you, your favorite influencer is probably paid by a foreign government, or your favorite influencer is almost definitely, if he's on the right or she is on the right, is most definitely getting money from a big GOP donor to push whatever it is they want to push. Like, this is so common and so prevalent. I don't think people understand that. And I'm really got to be honest. I've tried not to bring like Charlie into this conversation a lot because I think that like my own personal friendship with Charlie was my own personal friendship. And I don't want to be one of these people who bring it in. But I will say this. I always did admire how Charlie was one of those people. He definitely, obviously, took money from TPUSA, from donors, of course, and not all of those donors, especially not the ones who were really giving, TPUSA what they needed to operate day in and day out. They absolutely had to rely on bigger donors. And I always admired how Charlie, he was a peacemaker by nature. He always wanted all of the factions and the right to get along, but he also didn't allow himself to be bullied by that. And you could always tell when because we would have these conversations because we both trafficked in the same circles. So we'd have these conversations on his show where he'd be like, now, Rich, I know what you're showing me and I know what you're showing me with the polling. And I get that. I need you to break it down for these people, Rich. And he would always say, like, these people because he knew that the GOP donor class was so vastly different from the actual voter on the right. And that's a big problem on the right, and it has been for a long time. The left doesn't really have that problem. There are some on the left that give them money, like Wall Street, for instance. But Wall Street's a bunch of pansies who like cater to the social whims of their, the socialites and, the fads that come and go, and they don't really stand for anything. That's how New York City, I said yesterday on Bannon and elsewhere, because we did a couple shows yesterday, that these people are responsible for Mamdani, right? But that doesn't conflict with what the base of the party wants, even though, they'll tell you they hate Wall Street fat cats. But the truth is they are the Wall Street fat cats, and they're perfectly happy taking their money as long as they don't conflict with their agenda. And the right is not that way. The right is filled with a bunch of people, especially in the donor class, that are their collaborators, and they co-opt movements. They don't represent them. They don't support them. They don't have these hard convictions that they share in common with the grassroots. That's just not true. And a big part of the difficulty with this realignment and with the party accepting it and becoming more Trumplican, otherwise they'd be running away with New Jersey, by the way. The big problem with it is that the donor class doesn't want to be in lot. They don't want to throw their lot in with the rest of you. They don't like the rest of you. They would rather go back to the Mitt Romney and the Bush days where Wall Street did bankroll the Republican Party. They are more comfortable with the Orange County rich white Republican, or Kings County for that matter, than they are with you. That's true if you're white. That's true especially if you're not. But I mean, it's true regardless. This is a socioeconomic thing, okay? They don't have much in common with you. Like, you take somebody like a Kevin McCarthy, right? It's from Bakersfield. It's super red and rural. Is that who Kevin McCarthy hung out with day in and day out? No, of course not. Kevin McCarthy was too busy, and I guess I don't have the picture here anymore. I used to have this picture permanently uploaded of Kevin McCarthy's real friends, the Ken Griffins, the Jim Costas, right? This is who he really hung out with. He's uncomfortable, like so many other Republicans are. He can't go down to the southern border, guys, and go hang out with Hispanics in Zapata County. He can't do that, right? They're not like Donald Trump, where they could go to Wildwood, New Jersey, and attract a six-figure crowd of people who don't look like the Republican donor class. Even if they could do it and put on an act long enough, it would be completely exposed the minute they tried to engage in retail politics like Donald Trump can do, because they don't speak your language. They don't understand what your hopes are, what your concerns are, what your experience has been living as an American in whatever part of society that you live in. Whatever it is, it's not the part that they live in. Okay? So that's a big issue with the Republican Party in general. And I got to be honest with you, at the core of these fights that we've been seeing with the Republican Party, the latest being Tucker mainstream Nick Fuentes. Okay, we're going to talk about that a little bit, because I mean that's giving Tucker a whole hell of a lot of credit. The fact of the matter is something else. This is just the latest kind of like battle in a larger war, where there's the donor class who wants something, and they want something from the president. But the president was elected by people, average people. And I'm not just talking about if you're a core Trump supporter who supports everything he does. I'm not speaking to you right now. I mean, the truth is, there are a lot of people who do still support Trump because they like Trump, even though they don't think he's doing what he was elected to do or what they want him to do. And they disagree with a lot of the moves that he's made over the last 6 months. But the donor class thinks everything's great. They do. I know. I'm telling you. They think everything is fantastic. They're getting everything they ever wanted. And the country's headed in the right direction. And oh my God, did you see those Quinnipiac numbers for the Democratic Party? Their favorability? There's no way we could lose in 28. They're about to get a rude awakening. All right. And this is all wrapped up together. And just like I told you guys, like there's an awful lot of really bad takes on the right from the pundit class, from the so-called influencers. And they have a lot of trashy pollsters who give them numbers that they just want to see instead of the numbers that are real. Then, by the way, those very same pollsters will get contracts with other things like news outlets and then deliver completely different results for those news outlets. Let me ask you a question. Who do you think they're lying to more? They just want to be paid, man. That's it. So anyway, yeah, I mean, let's go to the poll. But in a second, I mean, later on in the second half of the show, actually, it's going to be like the last 10 or 15 minutes of the show. I'm going to explain this a little bit more because this is just the most recent manifestation of it. All right, let's get to the poll results. All right, so not terrible, but not good by any shake. All right, there's just no way to put it. And I have to say something here that I think is very, very, very important for everybody to understand. This doesn't have to be this way for Donald Trump. This was not inevitable. I'm so sick of hearing people say things like, well, you know, he's still ahead of Barack Obama where he was in his second term. Well, you know, he's still ahead of this one and that. He didn't have to be here at all. And 45% historically, with the exception of Joe Biden, because of we've gone over the 3 reasons why Democrats outperformed in 2022. All right. 2 of them you have to know about right now, obviously, is that redistricting. It was a different map. It's one that was gerried very favorably to Democrats, extremely favorably to disfavorable for Democrats. And the second is, of course, part of the realignment. The nature of the realignment is that Democrats are now they are the party of more higher propensity voters. I mean, sometimes I really feel like I'm beating a dead horse here, folks, but it's because of how stupid the commentary is by these wannabe experts, and people listen to them, these fake influencers and wannabe experts. They don't know what in hell they are talking about, but they act like they do. And because people want affirmation more than they want the truth in many cases, they get audiences, and those audiences listen to them and steer them in the wrong direction. There are a lot of parallels in this administration, during this administration, on the right than what we saw in the first Trump administration, when you literally had the influencer crowd telling Trump supporters and the administration, chill out. You know what? Chill out. Like, I'm reading a QAnon board, and Robert Mueller is really a good guy. He's not the end of your presidency. Meanwhile, real MAGA, like Steve Bannon, was like kicking the door down on the way out. Like, your presidency is over because you didn't listen. It's over. And it plagued him for the rest of his presidency. All right. And the same thing is happening here. Oh, don't worry. There are people. Oh, you know, how'd World War III go? How's your coalition going, wise ass? Because we're actually going to look at people who say they voted for you, or you guys, in 24, and now they're not. And there's a major reason why. And in the headline, spoiler alert, in case you didn't watch one of the interviews yesterday, and if locals, you already know, because I've given you this crosstab and you already know what it is. Too much foreign policy. The administration is a matter of optics. They are not selling this idea to the American people that they are appropriately balancing the time they're spending on foreign affairs versus the time they're spending on domestic affairs, which is what people want them to focus on. The top 5 issues in the country right now are either directly or indirectly economic issues. All of them. God, these people who call every show piss me off. They are all economic issues, and they are not dealing at all with foreign policy, which is way down on the totem pole. And you know that if, again, you have a subscription on Locals, which you should. peoplespundit.locals.com, peoplespundit.locals.com. Now, again, I just said it, and there's a little bit of a distinction. Yes, inflation is cooled. It's a matter of, it's the perception. Yeah, it's the perception. Literally one person, and I told the vice president this on Saturday night when I heard it, and I said it to him. And then I went to Twitter publicly just to make sure I was heard. When voters are telling you, what the hell is JD doing still wailing at a freaking wall when I can't afford groceries? It's not funny. You should listen. Because the right, again, I'm going to repeat this because the first time I'm saying it on Inside the Numbers. I'll have to say it, I guess, again. Apparently the left are not, those on the left are not the only ones capable of living in a bubble. And we know this actually from the first Trump administration. However, the question remains, are they the only ones incapable of popping it? Can the right do that and take their heads out of their asses? Or are they just going to be like Democrats and pretend everything's fine? If you don't agree with that, then you're this, you're that, you're this name, you're that name. All right. First and foremost, let's make it bigger so people can see. Okay. Here is the recall 2024 vote. I want to just show you guys something real quick. I'm going to do 2024 recalled vote against job approval. Because I want to show you something. People are always asking me, well, Rich, how come Harris's share is always lower than Trump's? Like Trump's is either right on the nose, or maybe it's a little lower, maybe it's a little higher, but Harris's share is always lower. And this is something I took notice of immediately, even under Joe Biden. All right. And this happens. This is why you should not wait for a recalled vote. If you wait for other things, I don't. And if you employ like a rake weighting method, right? Maybe you do propensity or rake weighting or modeling and rake, maybe a little combination, depending on what your methodology is. Using the recalled vote among voters who did vote in that election at least is a nice way to see whether or not you're ballpark close, right? And everything else looks good. But you shouldn't wait for it for two reasons. One, as you can see right there, the sample size is about 2,500. Well, that's about 500 less than the entire sample. Why is that, folks? Well, because the rest of it, so registered voter sample, did not vote. Even a likely voter sample may not have everyone who voted in 24. So how could you possibly wait for people who didn't cast a ballot in that prior election? Thank you so much, honey. Secondly, people lie. No. And in the Biden era, a lot of people lied. All right. They would say, I voted for Donald Trump. Don't blame me for this shit. I voted for Donald Trump. And they were, of course, lying. We know they voted for Joe Biden. We know it. And that's why estimating Joe Biden's remorse vote, right? Voter remorse was always a little bit tricky because we knew it was like 5 to 8% on any given month. But sometimes it might look a little higher, trying to gauge what it really was. But the bottom line is we did see people start to lie about voting for Joe Biden. Here's the good news for Donald Trump. Nobody is lying, not in significant numbers, about their vote for Donald Trump, which means they are not regretting it and or ashamed of it. No matter how many stupid idiots you see on X going, I'm a lifelong Republican and I voted for Donald Trump 3 times and now I've had it. That's bullshit. You don't really exist. You're either a bot or you're just like really on the peripheral. You're less than marginal, or more likely, you're paid to post bullshit. Okay? In the real world, it's not real. The vast majority of Trump's voters have no problem. And I mean, when I say vast majority, I mean like almost every single one of them. They have no problem telling you they voted for Donald Trump. Kamala Harris, on the other hand, all right. Nobody wants to admit, Laura, they voted for Heels Up Harris. Doesn't matter how bad inflation is, they say. Wasn't me. Right? I mean, there's afraid to catch that disease she got. Me, I'm telling you. 44.8%, which is roughly what we've been always seeing, maybe 46. We'll admit they voted for Kamala Harris, but all of this someone else we know is BS. To prefer not to say all BS, right? We know that obviously that's Kamala's vote. And how do we know? if you go down to Trump's approval rating, you can clearly see among prefer not to say, the largest is not even undecided, although that's a big amount. So maybe 13 out of the 36 really would prefer not to say. Maybe they just voted for third party, or they're being coy, right? But 13 or 37% of the prefer not to say strongly disapproves of Donald Trump. You see the same thing kind of going on with the someone else, although that someone else is very close to the actual two-party vote. I mean, third-party vote, excuse me. So, it's safe to buy that. But 31% still strongly disapprove. So at least there's some indication that at least some of those people, right, did in fact vote for Kamala Harris. But in any event, let's move on here. So the economy and jobs overall, and I was very interested in this because you're seeing these like AP polls and The Economist, all YouGov data sets, right? Yahoo News, right? Anyone who uses the YouGov panel or the Ipsos panel, right? Yeah. Or the Merispeaks or whatever it is, the Ipsos panel. They're all showing these like ridiculously negative numbers on the issues for Donald Trump, including jobs in the economy. As you can see, we don't. As you can see, he's not doing bad at all in the economy. All right. It's like they know he's trying at least, or whatever it may be. The problem Trump has is that look at Harris's voters. 76% of Harris's voters overall strongly disapprove of Trump, whereas Trump's voters only 52% strongly approve. All right. When you go down to the economy, you see, markedly lower shares for both, but the same thing goes on. So Trump, at least on these overall and on jobs in the economy, he's upside down with this. The only issue where he's roughly even, is immigration, where he gets his best marks, right? 36% strongly approve. That is, of course, more than 31% who strongly disapprove. And you can see about 63% of both. All right. People just don't realize when the hell the show is, and it drives me nuts. And it's, guess what? Always GOP donors. Always. You want to know? You want some free advice? 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Inside the Numbers, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. For Christ's sake. Lord, forgive me. For goodness sake. I used the Lord's name in vain. She's going to give me a rap for that later. Yeah. All right. This is the kicker to me. Here's foreign policy, national security, which he's spending all of his time on. And listen, the voters aren't wrong as a matter of fact. All right. You can go to the White House schedule and actually confirm that the majority of voters who are pissed about this are right to be pissed. He is dedicating significant amount more time to foreign affairs than he is domestic issues. That is always a trap with the presidency. Woodrow Wilson lamented it. George Herbert Walker Bush didn't want to listen to reason and ended up bit in the ass and thrown out of office because of it, and then spent the rest of his life crying about it. All right? Foreign policy can kill you, but it will never save your presidency. All right? It is something that is expected of a president to do. A great president is perceived as somebody who can do all of that, manage those duties, and not forget about you at home. That's the difference between a good president and a great president, and one that will get marks that reflect that. Because again, I didn't make a big enough deal about this. I got sidetracked. This didn't have to happen. Donald Trump doesn't have to be at 45%. You'll see people still like him. He's only like -3 in the poll. That's a swing of like 6 points. Big deal. It's completely reversible. They're giving him an enormous amount of grace and an enormous amount of latitude. By the way, look at his numbers. Strongly approve on foreign policy, national security, 31% strongly approve, another 19% somewhat approve. So yeah, he's above water, but it's only by like 5. So he's not even getting the political juice out of this, that especially not compared to how much political juice he's losing over this. Guys, this is Biden bad over here. Do you approve or disapprove the job that Trump is doing on the issue of inflation, cost of living? 42% strongly disapprove. I went back and I looked. That's Biden bad for strongly disapprove on this issue. Look at Harris's voters. 75% strongly disapprove. Trump voters, only 32.5% strongly approve. That is a gross imbalance. That's why the show's called Inside the Numbers, not the top line numbers. All right? This is the stuff that matters. This is the stuff that solidifies opinion. This is the stuff that deepens conviction. That is not good at all. But, okay, when we get to Trump's favorability, and I'm only showing the 2024 vote here. Real quick, though, before I do, let me go to race real quick. Let me go to race detail, actually. All right. As you can see here, our Hispanic vote share is almost perfect from 2024. It's almost flawless. That's almost identical to the actual margin. 53-42. We're off on Trump by about 3 points. That's it. Maybe a little bit more on some estimates, but it's very close. And Harris is basically on the money. Someone else 4% is undoubtedly BS, right? I would probably split that up evenly between them, honestly. But yeah, not whites, though. Whites are always the ones who lie later. They're always the ones who lie. You'll notice one thing, there is a bright spot for Donald Trump in one area, and I will point it out in a second. Actually, I'll just tell you. His approval rating with black voters is higher than his vote share from 24. All right? And it's not strong approve. His strong approve is only about 14% with black voters. But, I mean, that is a nice... Like, any Republican would probably cut his left nut off to get that approval rating among black voters. But, unfortunately, the flip side of that is his decline, which is a very, very dramatic decline among Hispanic voters. You can see 40% of them strongly disapprove, another 18% somewhat disapprove. Folks, yuck. 58% disapproval among Hispanics, yuck. That's probably because they were the newest additions to MAGA. Make what? Where great again? What country first? That might have something to do with it. So, not for nothing. I mean, these people had to endure tweets which they knew were provocative. Throw in your face, I don't give a shit about you tweets. Make Iran great again. I mean, do you think they're stupid? People aren't stupid. Look at his approval from Hispanics overall in the economy. As you can see, Trump's getting a little bit better with whites on the economy when it comes to, somewhat approval. But it's not marginally that different. You can see Hispanics not marginally that different at all. That it's not good. This isn't good. Immigration and border security is the one issue where Hispanics do give Trump pretty decent marks, but he's still underwater. I mean, honestly, when people ask me, why do I think that is? Honestly, I don't think the left's been successful at convincing them of anything. I think it comes down to the Hispanics who voted for Donald Trump and were more MAGA overwhelmingly wanted him to deport people and throw them the hell out of the country. This is something you'll never hear from the mainstream media, but it's true. They're probably wondering why, where are we at on this? And it's not just that. It's the H-1B1 visas, the working professional class migration situation. They cared about that too. Anyway, moving along. Look at inflation and cost of living with Hispanics. I mean, this is just ugly. It's ugly as hell. I mean, we don't have to spend a whole lot of time on this because it is that ugly. JD, my broski, you're getting pulled down by this. You just are. You're a +5. Now you're -3, -5, right? 22.8% very favorable, 21% somewhat favorable, but a whopping third very unfavorable, and another 13% somewhat unfavorable. So just slightly negative overall, but you can see that the intensity index, what we call the intensity index, what does Rasmussen call it? Ask Mark, what the hell do they call it? They have a name for it too. We call it the intensity index, we are all looking at it like crazy because it matters a lot. It's against them. I will have to put the generic ballot up. I could probably show you in the back end. We did something like I told you guys. I kind of alluded to it, and I think on one episode I did explain it a little bit more in detail. In an effort to try to reduce this fake, I see Jason Corley over at Qantas dealing with it now. We're all dealing with it. It's this fake elevated third-party vote share. We go through multiple screens with the voter, and because normally our generic ballot with leaners is put together in what's called a multiple response variable, it means we've taken 2 questions. We have found the unique mentions from each of those choices, and we only detail the net or the sum of those 2 for Republican, Democrat, even someone else for that third party. But then that, that is further reduced by, listen, are you really undecided? Are you really voting for third party? Or is it just true that you're probably not going to vote, right? Isn't that true? And those who say that, we've done some testing, and we even did it on some of these elections that just came and gone without people noticing. It absolutely helped us. So when we went back and looked, it wasn't much, but 0.8 of a percentage point is going to piss me off if I'm that close in a state like North Carolina, and I'm like right on the money with Trump, but somehow 0.8 of Kamala's vote, I don't even think it was 8, I think it was 6, but whatever, ends up being in the someone else category, third party category, and it's just not true. It was never real, right? So we just identified a different screening process that we wanted to test, and if we liked the test results, we would adopt it. We did like them, we did adopt it, but it never occurred to me that I would have to combine those on a separate sheet before uploading the data set, because I thought the multiple response variable would allow us to do it with more than 2 leans. It doesn't. So either they're going to have to tell me what I'm doing wrong, customer support, or I'm going to have to re-upload it. But I could just tell you what it is anyway. It's not horrible for Republicans, but it's not good. And I mean, it's within the sampling, it's within the sampling era, the difference between, narrowly losing the House or losing 20 seats. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen. I just don't. I don't see it. I don't see it in the cards. Not yet, but I could be wrong. We'll have to see how much cowardice the Republican Party is going to display over the next couple of months. All right. Never underestimate Republicans to victory into a landslide defeat. All right. Yeah. John Thune is doing a good job flying under the radar. Almost nobody knows who he is. Of those who do know who he is negative. Chuck Schumer has always had about 1 out of 5 say that they don't know who he is. But listen, I don't know where these polls that have Schumer at positive 10. It's just a load of horseshit. Ooh, the Balsam Hill catalog's here. Yeah. Christmas. And it's almost time for the Christmas poll. What? All right, I am in a bit of a good mood today, even though I don't really have a reason to be, right? Hey, I'm alive. That's it, right? That's it. For us, and this is weird, this is actually an improvement for Mike Johnson since the last time we asked about Mike Johnson's favorability. Truth is, almost a third of the voting eligible population, the VEP, the VET, almost a third of them have no idea who Mike Johnson is. All right, not enough to actually form an opinion, but that ticked down a little bit this month. And as it did, his favorability went up a little bit. And his very unfavorable came down a little bit, which was weird, right? And then maybe it's the shutdown. Maybe that's a good sign for Republicans. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but in the last 24 to 48 hours, both MSNBC and CNN have berated Democratic guests, lawmakers, about this shutdown. Look, this is your fault. And the Democrats are like, that's not true. I have some video clips. We're probably not going to get to them. But Jake Tapper is taking him to the shed, man. Because I think they're starting. Maybe they have seen some polling on it. We haven't done a who do you blame thing in 3 weeks or something. So Maybe it's gotten even worse. It was never even that bad for Republicans when we did do it, right? Some of the public polls out there is just garbage, total garbage. About a third blame Republicans, about a third blame Democrats, about a third blame BS, other things, and that was it. Or they didn't know and had no opinion. Combined, it was it's like one third, one third, one third. Throw Donald Trump in there, he peels like 20% off. The rest goes. That was a third Republican, goes to Republicans anyway. That's a bunch of rhinos who can't stand Donald Trump anyway. And that, just remember that too, because you'll see it in the polling when you review the crosstabs. They have done a much better job this time, guys, of co-opting MAGA. And these people who are pretending to be MAGA and pretending to be authorities on Trump's agenda and a coalition, they're full of it. They're totally full of it. Some of the most angry Trump voters right now, or the most core MAGA voters there have been, period. Or the new additions. And I don't mean the new co-opt additions. I mean the legitimately new additions. Hispanics, young voters. Oh, yes. Hold on one second. That was very, very important. Let me show you this. Like, where the SAML is it, right? All right, Donald Trump narrowly lost 18-29. He did amazing, right? That's actually reflected right here. You can see it pretty easily. All right. Also look at the 30-44. All right. The 45-64. And then seniors, Trump narrowly did win. So despite all of the polls saying, Donald Trump's going to lose the senior vote, it is getting more Democratic because boomers are getting more Democratic. And the truth is, speaking of my good friend Charlie, we used to talk about this a lot. MAGA is younger because MAGA has the future ahead of them. And they're looking at the country and saying, this isn't going to last my whole life. It's just not. The older voters that used to be so reliably Republican just want to get through their golden years. And it's really, I've gone off on this before, but all voters make rational policy choices. And I find it repugnant that they don't seem to give a shit about the future of the country after they're gone. They just want to make sure they get their Social Security. They just want to make sure that everything's cool for them. I'm on a fixed income, no tariffs. I don't care what happens to trade, later when I'm in a box. No tariffs right now because I'm on a fixed income. What about your children? What about your grandchildren? That is why MAGA was ascendant among younger people and the Maha movement, all of that, because who does it impact? All right, back to it. All right, so as you can see, and I'm just showing you this to show you the prior vote shares, to show you that these are people who told us they voted for Donald Trump. You can see right there, that's actually almost exactly what happened. He did much better among one bracket than the other in the 18-29 bucket. When you break them down into two buckets, you can see it. He did well with both of them. Don't get me wrong, but he certainly did do much better with one than the other. Then from the 30-39, he started to really cook. And then, his core group was actually like 40-55, but we're breaking them down here as exit polls do, and have for years. So 40-49. And then you can see some of that senior vote, 65-74, that did go for Harris slightly. He was saved by the hair on his chinny chin chin by knocking out like a 6-point margin among those who are super seniors, which we spent a ton of time talking about before the 2024 election. Like, look, this is why Nate Cohen at the New York Times is going to blow it again. He did this in 2020. He did it with Joe Biden. He proclaimed Joe Biden was actually going to win seniors. He's only winning, Trump's only winning whites by like 6 points. That's a load of shit. We all knew it. All right. So the thing, though, is that look at the certainty to vote. And this is ultimately the Republicans' problem. It's like a ladder. Pyramid. That's even better. It's like a step pyramid. Little Imhotep for you. All right. The younger you are, the harder it is to get you to vote. The older you are, the more reliable it is for you to vote. You can see that with education as well. Let me just pull this up real quick, guys, so everybody can see what I'm talking about. Certainty to vote. High school or less, 55%. That's it. Some college and associate, 67. Higher, but nevertheless, we're still going up. A 4-year degree holder, college graduate, 77.9. Then finally, we get to advanced and postgraduate holders, 83%. So this is the core of the Republican problem right now when we're talking about states like Virginia, New Jersey, and then ultimately even the midterms. Trump did better with 4-year degree. He did better with college graduates, period. But he did better not simply because he changes their mind. In fact, that represented a much smaller percent of this group that was responsible for the shift of a couple of points to him since 2020. The real magic occurred because he got out people, even people with college degrees who don't normally vote. He got them to vote and they voted for him. The Trump or bust voter that everybody is telling Barnes and I now doesn't exist. Some of them have college degrees. Some of them have no degrees. Okay? So there we have it. And real quick, by race, it's even more interesting when you look at certainty to vote by race. Interestingly enough, the Democrats finally concluded what I told you, which was true, that there was no real big difference between non-whites, non-college, and non-white college. There was no big difference. When Sean Parnell and I, of course now, Mr. Assistant Deputy Secretary over the Defense Department, on Savage Wednesdays used to go over this all the time. And at that time, it was new to us, right? And I would tell him, Sean, the big deal here is this isn't just non-whites who don't have a college degree. He's gone up among all non-whites, period. And that's just a disaster for Kamala Harris. She cannot win like that. And that happened. And by the way, Shore Research, which is, if not, it probably is the biggest Democratic polling firm out there, at least by how many interviews they conduct every year. He came to the same conclusion in his post-election, whatever you want to call it, autopsy of why the party sucks, right? He came to the very same conclusion. All right, so here we go. Presidential approval, still pretty interesting here. The white with non-college degree should be very concerning to Donald Trump. That is supposed to be your core constituency, and you're doing not well. All right. I mean, sure, whatever. You can argue, but Rich is above water a little. He should be rocking with that group, absolutely rocking. And I'm telling you, speaking, I think I mentioned Qantas before, they see the same thing. We all are seeing this. Whatever is holding up Trump's approval rating right now is from a bunch of people who simply will not vote for him or Democrats anyway. So you're depressing your base in exchange for getting, I don't want to say they're fake because it's not fake. It's soft support. It's people who are saying, you know what? I do like what he's doing overseas. I work in the DC area and I have 5 degrees and I'm super smart. I do like it. Because it means to them, he's not spending his time reinventing the domestic economy for the worker. So of course they're going to say, you know what? I think I somewhat approve this month. But I'm telling you, it's not. It's real in that they are saying that, but it's not. It's not a hard support that's going to translate into votes. And how do I know? Because while Trump he's got majority approval with this, is crazy. But guess how they're voting for the generic ballot? About 12 points for the Democratic candidate. So it's not. I mean, again. It's not that it's not real. It's just not good. We look at even people like white evangelicals. Look at that margin with Trump. Romped Harris with white evangelicals. She barely got 20%, which probably she didn't get, honestly. But look now. I mean, this is just not good. There's already more of that who say they strongly disapprove. Another 11.4% who somewhat disapprove. So, I mean, I'm serious. There's just no nice way to put this. There are cracks in his base. And they're not huge cracks. But when I said this, when his approval fell to like 49%, and people were like, oh, he's making a big deal over 49%. Yeah, dummy. It was at 56. It never had to fall. From the stratosphere, sure, maybe a little bit. But actually, what was much more likely is that his disapproval was just going to rise to normal levels. There's nothing in the laws of nature and nature's God that says he had to fall in the 40s. He had the most diverse, most impressive coalition in 2024 than we have seen in the modern era. And why? Well, not for nothing. It's all right here. Right, and oh, wait a minute. Before we get to favorability, before we do that, let's get to favorability. Because I know that there were so many people who were, going on and on about this Quinnipiac poll. All right, Republicans, when you add it up, all right, we have 45.3% who have at least a somewhat favorable opinion of the Republican Party. Right. And yeah, I mean, they're negative, but they're not as negative as 47.6. They're not as negative as some of the other polls have them, which are just ridiculous. I'm telling you, we don't live in this kind of country, folks. I will show you this, though, real quick, which is interesting. If you go to, we don't need the detail. Let's just go to party. Okay, there you go. If you go, you might want to look at the crossover. There are, and this is like, I don't know, maybe good news for somebody like a Jack Citarelli or something, but I mean, gubernatorial elections aren't really nationalized elections. All right. But as you can see, there are unfavorable opinions among Republicans, about 13.1%. But you might notice that there's quite a few Democrats who are wondering what the hell they're doing these days. All right. The only thing is, that's the good bullet point. The bad bullet point is that there are more Democrats who have a very unfavorable opinion of Republicans than there are Republicans who have a very favorable opinion of Republicans. So holding them back is always this dynamic that we started off the show talking about, that there is a disconnect between their representation, right, and the voter out in America. Right? They don't feel like they always share the same values, and the reason for that is they don't. Okay? They don't. All right? Independents, not doing good at all. This is very bad. I mean, it's a terrible, terrible statistic right there. I mean, about 56% of 55.3. What is it? 55.3. Yeah. No, I was right the first time. 56.3%. That have a very, at least a somewhat unfavorable opinion, with a third of independents saying they're very unfavorable. However, and it's like not exactly a great thing to like compare, but Democrats are doing worse. All right, somewhat worse as far as the overall goes. Only 18.5% have a very favorable opinion of the Democratic Party, and 26.5% somewhat favorable. If you look, though, look at the very unfavorable rating with Democrats compared to, of course, they're very favorable. 5%. So again, it's like there are some Democrats that are wondering, like what am I doing here? But they're not like extreme hating on them. And they're actually, while it's low, 8.1% of Republicans who have a very, I mean, that's Bill Kristol. There's Bill Kristol. Everybody say hello to Billy Boy, a domestic communist turned neocon who pretends he's a conservative, which is a big part of the problem we're going to have to talk about by the end of the show. All right, which we're getting to because it's 2:51 already. I can go a little over, but I do have to get my child at the bus stop. This is the reason for the Republicans' woes and Trump's woes. All right, here we go. Let's start with party. It did come down with Republicans a little bit. It was at 40%, but that's still a massive amount of your own party who are saying that, that you're too focused on foreign affairs and not enough on domestic issues. It appears that did come down a hair with waiting. It was, I believe it was like 40. I thought it was 40 something, but it's not now. It's close, but I'm sure you'd rather have 37.2 if you're a Republican or you're the Trump administration rather than 40 or 45. Democrats obviously are going to take whatever zing they can take at the president, but look at independents: 54.7%, 27.4%, 17.9%. 55% of independents say that Trump is too focused on foreign affairs and not enough on domestic issues. More than a third of Republicans, almost 4 in 10 Republicans, agree with that. When you isolate independents with low vote history being less than 2 out of 4, or 2 out of 4 and less, excuse me, two of 4s or less, and their presidential cycles, you'll see that number is close to 60%. It's 58%. So indies, so like the MAGA independents that I was trying to explain to Bannon yesterday, that's who I'm talking about. They're very unhappy. It's making the number worse. All right. By party is a good way to look at this. Since we saw significant drop-offs with certain age and race groups, let's look at that. Let's look at race detail. We'll look at evangelical too. All right, but just bear with me. Very close to the national average: 52% of Hispanics, 52% of whites, 55% of African Americans. Asians have less of a problem with it, which I find interesting, considering they're a very tough group for Republicans, although they have been making gains. The other race ethnicity is always one that Trump does very well with. Maybe Republicans not so much, but definitely Trump. And they're above the national average on this. All right, so that's race. And let's look at age detail. I think this is illuminating. All right, look at his core age group, which I told you before was middle working men. Middle working Americans. All right, it's above the national average of 55.4. Younger voters also definitely think that that's the case, right? And this is his age group. That's like that's worse for him. And I mean, that was weird bit of an anomaly. But we're only dealing with 251 interviews. So, subgroup sampling errors for subgroups are higher. But we see the same pattern everywhere. 75 plus. They gave him the highest marks on whether or not they think it's just about right at 40.6%. But I mean, this is overwhelming. This is across the board, every age group. Everybody says the same thing. And we didn't put the rank distribution in there yet, guys, but we will, so you can see the difference in in intensity, I guess I want to say. Like, the rank distribution looks better on the other chart. MarketSite is not great at presenting it in a crosstab. If you understand statistics better than the average bear, then you'll get it. But for most people, they'll just look at it, see a single digit number, and be like, I don't get it. All right. So maybe we'll have to learn how to go over that one day. But all right, I put this up because this is the voting likelihood, and you can see that number who think that he's too focused on foreign affairs is the highest among those who are certain to vote. Well, that's not good. You'd rather them just not vote, but they're going to. All right? So keep that in mind. Evangelicals, even by race. Look at white evangelicals. They're supposed to be the core of his base. And oh, by the way, I thought white evangelicals were the ones who were supposed to have this deep universal kinship with Israel in the Middle East. And, bullshit. Evangelicals have changed. Do we really have to go down this lesson plan again? Go over this lesson plan again? I thought we thoroughly understood this and thoroughly covered this going into the 2024 Republican Iowa caucuses. Are they closer? Sure. But they still, a plurality more, just under a majority, still agrees with the rest of the country. And these are non-white evangelicals, which, look at that, which, by the way, was a strong group for Trump this time. Overwhelming, 60%. It's not that I think one group is more important than the other, but folks, winning elections is about addition, not subtraction. These are the voters that you need to bring into the fold while not chasing away the others. But believe me, the numbers are so overwhelming. You're not going to chase anybody away by saying, listen, guys, change in plans. We need to refocus our efforts on the American worker. How many people do you think are going to protest that and be taken seriously? Go do a freaking Midwest jobs tour or something. The manufacturing numbers are just disgusting. Got Democrats touting this today. Highest number of layoffs under Trump since 2020. Fewer job openings. A little hard to argue with them when they're just quoting a statistic that happens to be true. If you look at the presidential vote, let's get down right to it. All right. Obviously, more of Trump voters say he's been more balanced and it's just about right. Okay, there's your neocons pretending to be Trump supporters over here. But when you have 4 in 10 of your own voters saying, get back to the damn domestic agenda, it's time to get back to the domestic agenda. Again, it's much easier to placate the people who say, oh, the focus has been just about right. They're core supporters. They're going to support him no matter what. It's the others that you clearly have to worry about. America Firsters, you got 35% of MAGA. It's huge. And this, by the way, is another way you always tell how these people who say they're unsure have no opinion. And just so you know, it's a little under 50% who identify as America First Republicans. About a third or something like that identify as traditionals, maybe a little bit more this month. And then the rest are unsure and have no opinion. And I've long said that that's really not true. These people are more MAGA than anything. And it's like we saw it through the primaries. These people overwhelmingly were backing Trump. We saw it, in all these issue tests. It's just very, very clear that they're just not stating themselves to be America First, but they agree almost perfectly in line with those who do identify as America First. So, in this case, actually, it's even a little bit more favorable to Trump. All right. Veterans, interestingly enough, look at veterans. One of the most Trumpy, MAGA, America First groups in the country. 49 to 29.8. 49.3 to 29.8. Too many distractions with foreign affairs. Get back to domestic issues. Even, by the way, even active duty military, even more of them say that he's too focused on. I mean, guys, I don't know what else. Like, when you get the crosstab, just do me a favor. Go through every freaking demographic. When it's this significant, look at the Midwest. Look at the Midwest. The South is military country. And 50% of them are saying this administration's too focused on foreign affairs. Look at the Midwest. The heart of the Trump Rust Belt Revolution. 54% to 30 points. 53.7 to 30.7. It's literally a 23-point margin. All right. I mean, we can go by census division yourself later when you want. Look at East, North, Central. Oh, Lord. It's one of the worst. I think is it the worst? It is. I actually thought West, North, I had it backwards. No, Pacific is technically the worst. But still, I mean, Pacific is kind of a blue area. And some of that, like I said, you're just sometimes going to get Democrats who want a ding. But Mountain is super Trumpy, right? I mean, you're looking at Utah, Wyoming, the most Trumpy state in the country. He won Nevada, Arizona by 6+. I mean, East, North, Central, in case you don't remember, very important. And the South Atlantic, which does include some rather blue areas like Virginia and the District of Columbia, Maryland. Okay. But it also includes places like Florida and Georgia, right? The Carolinas. So yeah, it's not, I mean, even that marginally better, not great. And why? I mean, well, look, you have places like, you have some military hub places, right? In Florida, in North Carolina, Fayetteville, right? It's big, obviously. It's the home of the first special, it's home of the JFK Special Warfare Center. But in Georgia, it's always going to be Fort Benning to me. I don't know what the hell they're calling it now. Obviously, South Carolina, you have the whole Boeing industrial complex over there, right? And still, I mean, it's overwhelming. Again, it's overwhelming. If you look at employment status, by the way, Barnes has done this a lot and tried to explain. Trump did so well with these typical Democratic groups that, I don't know if disenfranchised is the word, but disconnected, right, from society, disconnected from the American dream. Given up on it almost. Look at the disabled. 57%. It's the biggest one. Second to that is unemployed full time. The biggest group in the country by employment status. And then you have the disabled, who are more vulnerable to economic stressors. Come on. Those are the two most important groups when it comes to people who are going to, feel pain, economic pain, a little bit more acutely than others. All right. I mean, that's it. I know it's 3:05. We're going to have to do a couple of shows this week, probably. Not probably. We're going to have to. We got to go over the Registered Voter Economic Confidence Index, the generic ballot. So I'm going to wind up doing a stream tomorrow. That's going to happen, just to let you guys know, because I can't fit everything in Friday. And I had to get this out first. And this really did have to be set. We did ask people, who'd you vote for? With the other study, but we couldn't ask all these political questions and get through some of the sensitive questions. Honestly, at the end of the day, once we shifted focus, let me look and see what it was. Because it is such a issue like political violence is so sensitive. We did have to, and we wanted to collect some personal identifiable information that we normally don't need to collect. Not that much anyway. And that makes it more difficult. It's going to make collecting take longer. But we got a better feel for it. It actually went fairly well. Slowly, but well. And the drop-off rate was I just took a peek. It was only 10%. That's not a huge drop-off rate for any study at all, let alone something like that asks you, oh, by the way, and we're trying to be sneaky, but people aren't dumb. We ask all these weird questions and then we go over gender and then we circle back. Oh, specifically about, because we normally say, what is your sex? Right. So then 2 questions later coming in and being like, more specifically talking about gender. Did any of these apply to you? Do you identify as any of these? It's a little bit borderline absurd to think that you could sneak that past people, right? But you grew up in a one-parent household by any chance? All of this stuff that we're literally finding off of crime stats, because that's what we were looking for. What on different violent behavior, what do the feds see as higher links, right? And for people, the left hates to hear it, but it's absolutely true. Trans domestic violence is through the roof compared to heterosexual domestic households. It's through the roof. And it's weird because if you go and look on the literature from the Justice Department or anybody, the FBI was what we were looking at, they spin it into it being like they're a victim or something. Well, right, yeah, sure, they are, of each other. I mean, it's insane. It's crazy. I'm not at all surprised to find that they have a very different view of what violence is. Speech is not violence. Punching you in your freaking face is violence. Shooting somebody is an act of violence. And why does that matter? Because if we don't have the same definition here, folks, then like people are just, violence was committed against me first. Didn't you hear what that son of a bitch said? No, I didn't. Which video are you referencing specifically? That's not violence. Those are words. Words. Hey, she says. Hey, don't. Hey is for horses. Okay? Hey is for. Wouldn't that be funny if you just saw this hand and always with those nails, right? You see that hand with those nails? Sexy nails, by the way. Those hands, just whack! It'd be kind of funny. That would definitely get clipped and shared all over X, wouldn't it? And then since you can't stand the use of profanity, it would be like definitely memed like Laura slaps the shit out of the People's Pundit. It would be I may let you do that just so that goes viral. That would be hilarious. No, our kids will see that. Here it comes. She said, "I love you. I love you." By the way, speaking of which, go segue into this Fuentes interview real quick. This guy, wait a minute. Let me play this clip he talked about with your wives and how you should. Where is it? I know it's here. It's Tucker asked him about relationships. And he's like, I got Sir Squeaks a lot, she calls him. But I really want to show people this. Let me see. Where is it? Tucker. All right. Because I want to show you how he characterized marriage. And I just thought it was hilarious that we were getting advice from like relationship advice from an unmarried man who, I mean, wait a minute. Where is this? I was going to say something about it and then I didn't. So then, if somebody's got this clip on, you guys know what I'm talking about. If you watch this interview, but he basically says, I can't stand it when guys say that their wife is their best friend. It's like, no, she's your wife. She's there to assist you. And I'm thinking to myself, we have a biblical marriage. We do, in as much as anybody can have a biblical marriage in today's modern world. But you work your butt off. You don't exist just to take care of me. You have other things going on. And you are my best friend. So I actually trust my wife more than I trust anybody else in the world. And I just think it's funny. It's like we literally have been married almost as long as this kid's been alive. We don't need to take marriage advice from Nick Fuentes. All right. So, I mean, it's just so stupid. Like, what? It's like Tucker at first I'm wondering what the value is for Tucker to have him on. And then I realized it. 1 hour and 8 minutes into the interview, I figured it out. And Tucker could say whatever BS excuse that he has for it. But you don't have somebody like Nick Fuentes on to talk about political violence in America. Like you could, I could think about somebody you could call that may have more insight into that. I think he just conducted the only study on political violence of this nature. Maybe he will when it all comes out. Locals, you're going to get it first, of course. I would have maybe given him an exclusive on it, but that's not the point. What the hell would he know about it other than he supposedly or allegedly was the victim of an alleged assassination attempt? Where you go? Oh, you're going. Okay, I love you too. Don't worry, I'll make sure I get out there. I got 10 minutes. And in any event, I'm wondering what the hell is the point of this interview? And it dawns on me that Tucker actually was more concerned, I think, about how I'm trying to be. Okay. Let me just say this. All right. Let me just say this. Everybody's blaming, let me come at it this way. Everybody's blaming Tucker Carlson for mainstreaming Nick Fuentes. Okay. And I'm thinking to myself, he just had an interview with this guy. Yes, Tucker's big, but he just had an interview with this guy. It literally just aired. I just finished it last night because I'm busy like most of the world is. And immediately by this morning, and actually even started last night, everyone's saying, oh, Tucker mainstream this guy. I'm out. I'm out of this movement. I'm out of this party. Is that even possible? Could you give that much credit to Tucker? Or did something else happen here? Which I think Tucker probably was aware of. And I'm not sure I agree with it. I don't care. I let anybody speak. The only thing I really have to say about, because I don't see, even with all the backstory with Charlie and everything with Nick Fuentes, I don't see the problem with letting someone speak their mind. I do, though, when someone like Nick Fuentes has said the things that he has said, and then Tucker sits down for an interview with him and doesn't press him at all and lets him get away with conveying to all of his viewers that he essentially just has these mainstream views. Look, I thought about playing some of the clips, and he even says in the interview that his life and his views are basically defined by clips. Guys, he had a show on Right Side Broadcasting for a long time where he just spout off on this, which is the same show he's got now called America First. And he said the things that he said. That is not the same as criticizing, and it's specifically about Jews. All right, I'm just going there. And by the way, Barnes and I have talked about this before, and that element. Barnes, if you remember, and I'm going to come back to this, what debated Nick Fuentes and took the pro-Israel side in the debate. All right. What Tucker let him do last night was camouflage his views in with the views of others who have perfectly rational and legitimate questions about our relationship with Israel and Israel's honesty and their own policy in Gaza. That is not the same thing as what Nick Fuentes said. And I'm going to tell you why. Tucker did push back on this one thing about this concept of you just blame the Jews for everything, right? And if you're a Christian, you can't do that because we're all supposed to be judged individually. So that's anti-Christian. And I give credit to Tucker for that. But he fired back and said, well, no, because this like Jewishness thing, they're the only ones who have this. And I would argue that's not really true. The right goes on and on. I mean, it is when it comes to just one nation specifically, but they have their own, they have an identity, right? But the right's been going on about Muslims and they're feeling, you know, like that they're organized, right? Because that's what it's organized Jewishness or something, he said. Well, there's organized Muslim causes and act, right? And they do, for those who don't think, well, that's only, you know, they come from different countries, rich. Well, that's not really what the dangerous part of Islam wants. that's what I mean. And we know that from ISIS, right? That the dangerous part of Islam does not want one country for different people. They want one country for everyone. They want a giant caliphate, right? And I just thought it was like rather hypocritical how you could talk about something like what's going on in France and its threat to Western civilization. And that, the right does that all the time with them. And I just don't see that big of a difference. But anyway, he let him lump these very clear, it's very clear. But I mean, I don't speak for Barnes, but I guess I can because we've talked about it publicly, even together. Like there's very clear anti-Semitic attitudes. And then there's questioning the Israeli government. And Tucker let him kind of like chameleon into that. So I'll fault him for that. But if Nick Fuentes does become mainstream, it would not be because of one interview that Tucker Carlson conducted with this guy. That's not even really possible. That's not how the Overton window changes in society. That's not how mass public opinion evolves in society or ideologies take root. And it's just not how it works, guys. And then the viewpoint of others, starts to begin to become, shared by large amounts of people. This is what happened. I mean, I'm not going to say it as a question because I'm just going to say it. Nick Fuentes played them. And by them, I mean the pro-Israel, even Israel first, right of the Republican Party or the Republican movement. I don't even call it the Republican Party. I think they'd go from both parties if whatever. If the Democratic Party gave them what they wanted and pursued the policies that they wanted in the Middle East and specifically with Israel, they'd go to the Democratic Party too. And we know that because the neocons like Paul Wolfowitz and Bill Kristol did just that. They all did, right? Kirkpatrick, excuse me, and Reagan, he's got a great fault in them now pretending to be Republicans. The truth is they were always domestic leftists. We've gone over this a lot. It's just a history. They were always domestic leftists. And then they became Republicans in name only because Republicans were more hawkish, right? And when you don't, let me put it this, when you don't agree with them, they go scorched earth on you. And because they failed, all right, to tolerate any dissent whatsoever, I'm talking about the lumping everybody, and Mark just tweeted it. You can go look at it now. Mark Mitchell knows exactly where I'm going with this because he already just said now we're lumping Matt Walsh in with Nick Fuentes. So that's what they've been doing. And I've been calling it browbeating and stuff like that. It's been going on since the whole conflict with between Israel and Iran, and then Trump deciding to hit Iran's nuclear facilities. They made the decision to try to bully and browbeat everyone who didn't agree with them. People who had earnest concerns about Trump using his political capital for another stupid intervention, which is going to probably end poorly, whether it's a week from now or a year from now. And it doesn't matter anyway, because this is not what the administration was elected to do. It was elected to put America first and deal with the problems in the country first. Now look at the polling, guys. Like very clearly, we were right about that. Barnes and I were right about that. And it's just these idiots just continue to attack people instead of reflecting on their mistakes because they don't want to, and they're never going to. That's the bottom line. They're not going to, because the truth is, they don't care. They feel that they're going to get what they want from Trump anyway, so they don't care really to make peace with you. They'll just try to trash you, smear you, and drag your reputation through the mud, throw you in there with Nick Fuentes because you don't think that Bibi Netanyahu is a good person, because he's not. He's a freaking liar. It's documented forever. So what I'm saying is, Tucker would not have been able to even do that if he was the one who's to blame for mainstreaming Nick Fuentes. Nick played them. He knew exactly how they were going to act. All Nick had to do was sit around and wait for the moment. And when that moment came, they acted exactly how he expected them to react. And he was able to play them like a fiddle here. They already tilled the soil to plant those seeds. It would never have been fertile for somebody like a Nick Fuentes if they didn't do that. And it's funny and it's ironic because in the interview, Tucker actually says, have you ever thought or worried about becoming the thing that they say you are just to spite them or whatever, because that's in human nature? And he said, no, I don't. And I think he's full of shit, but that's what he said. And in truth, I think Tucker knew full well what he was saying when he asked that question. He knew what Nick did. He knew it. Anyway, let's, again, not forget, Barnes was the guy. I'm going to talk about not tolerating any dissent whatsoever. Barnes was the guy who actually debated Nick Fuentes, called him an anti-Semite, told the party you should have no room here for this guy. And now because Barnes was unwilling to put Israel first, and he spoke, God forbid, he spoke for the voter that we speak to all the time. Now he's an anti-Semite. The browbeating didn't work. It just made it worse. So if in the future, and I'm not sold on him being mainstreamed yet, but in the future, if he becomes mainstream, it will be just as much the fault of the pro-Israel, can never do any wrong crowd. It will be just as much their fault because of how they chose to treat supposed allies and friends for daring to have questions. It will be just as much their fault as it will be Tucker's fault. All right. I'm out. I got to go get my little one. All right. Don't forget, if you like the videos, to like them and share them far and wide. All right. We'll be back tomorrow because we have too much to cover. We cannot get through it all in one day. The best place to follow us and where you'll get the poll results faster than anybody else is right there. peoplespundit.locals.com. peoplespundit.locals.com. All right. What else? What am I missing? I don't know. Keep your eye on social media because I got a lot more coming. All right, guys. I'll see you soon. Be good. And don't forget, 2 p.m. tomorrow. Economic Confidence Index. Generic ballot, which generic will be out for you locals very soon. All right, I got to kick rocks.